Currently, China has effectively blocked the export of rare earth elements to Japan. As a result, Japan is facing its biggest crisis since the conflict with China began. Today, let's take a closer look at the current situation. Let's get started. On January 6th, the Chinese Ministry of Commerce announced tighter controls on dual-use exports to Japan. What does this mean? It's an announcement banning immediate export of any goods to Japan that could serve military uses. Dual-use goods include rare earth elements and strategic minerals needed for advanced manufacturing, semiconductors, drones, and aircraft. We should prioritize these rare earth elements. China processes over 90% of the world's rare earths. Dual-use items include rare earth elements and strategic minerals like tungsten, gallium, germanium, and graphite. Will this immediately harm Japan's economy? Tungsten is crucial for tanks, jets, and semiconductors. Gallium and germanium are used in solar panels and lasers, and graphite is vital for batteries. Now those exports are blocked. China's complete ban on the export of dual-use items this time is even stricter than in the past. Already 16 years ago, in 2010, China retaliated against Japan during the Senkaku Islands dispute by delaying the customs clearance process for rare earth exports to Japan. But the issue back then was just a delay in customs clearance. This time, however, it's a complete export ban. As a result, Japan must now address immediate rare earth damage, while China continues to retaliate, including cutting tourist numbers to Japan. They restricted Japanese cultural content in retaliation, but when that failed, they blocked rare earth exports. That still wasn't the end. China not only blocked direct exports to Japan, but also stated it would prevent Japan from getting rare earths through third countries. They warned that if Chinese rare earths enter Japan in any form, even the companies and countries involved could face sanctions. They said if an American company imports Chinese rare earths and re-exports them to Japan, it would also face disadvantages, escalating the situation further. This measure is virtually an official declaration of a secondary boycott. This means they plan to block any attempts by Japan to access rare earths indirectly via the United States, Southeast Asia, or Europe. For Japan, if direct and third country trade with China are blocked, few options remain. Even if prices soar, Japan will have to either negotiate with China or rely on currently unrealistic alternative supply chains. More importantly, this warning isn't just for Japan. By naming American companies, China signals that anyone involved in the rare earth issue could face consequences. This means that companies trying to help Japan, as well as countries looking to trade with Japan using Chinese rare earths, could all become targets of pressure. With this single statement, China is not only tightening the noose around Japan, but has also begun a high-intensity pressure campaign that takes into account the United States and its allies. Japan faced rare earth export controls in 2010, highlighting the risks of depending on one country for key resources. They began changing their supply chain, but haven't finished the transformation. They still rely on China for more than half of their supply, and especially for key raw materials essential to the electric vehicle and semiconductor industries such as rare earths and graphite, they depend heavily on China. There are concerns that if export controls become a reality, it will inevitably deal a blow to Japan. Let me show you how important this is. A Nomura Research Institute report from November 28, 2025. Before Japan nationalized the Senkaku Islands in 2012, it relied on China for 85% of rare earths. Even after supply chain efforts, 58% still comes from China, and full diversification hasn't been achieved. Especially for heavy rare earths like neodymium used in electric vehicle drive motors, and dysprosium and terbium, which are auxiliary materials for magnets, Japan's dependence on China is almost 100%. Naturally, if the supply of rare earths becomes unstable, there is a high possibility that the shock will spread not only to the automotive industry, but also to electronic components, wind power generation equipment, medical devices, and the aerospace industry. Many industries rely on Chinese rare earths. Alternatives exist, but higher costs are expected to cause significant harm. A Nomura Research Institute report says 3 months of rare earth export restrictions could cost Japan 660 billion yen, or 6.1 trillion won. If restrictions last a year, losses could reach 2.6 trillion yen, about 24.19 trillion won, and gross domestic product may drop. Japan has clear signs of embarrassment. A Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs official told the Asahi Shimbun they were surprised by China's tighter restrictions and don't know the reason for the timing. Kanai Masahaki, Director General of the Asian and Oceanian Affairs Bureau, expressed deep regret, calling the Japan-only measure unacceptable and unlike international practices. He strongly protested China's actions and urged withdrawal. For now, Japan will monitor the situation, but it still has options for retaliation. It seems that Japan could immediately tighten export controls on some semiconductor materials. If Japan starts to play its own retaliation cards, it is expected that China's semiconductor industry will also be greatly affected. Why did China act suddenly? Simply, the conflict with Japan isn't over. Prime Minister Kaichi said he planned military intervention in Taiwan in early November, prompting strong protests from China. But this conflict still hasn't been resolved, so did China play the rare earth card to increase pressure on Japan right now? Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning criticized Prime Minister Kaichi at a regular briefing for questioning efforts to strengthen defense via revisions to key security documents, following his comments at the previous day's New Year's press conference. Mao Ning, spokesperson for China's Foreign Ministry, called this a dangerous trend speeding up Japan's rearmament and said China will not allow Japanese militarism to return. Japan's Nihon Keizai Shimbun reported that, given its history of extracting concessions from the United States, some speculate China is pressuring Japan over rare earths. South Korea appears to be only watching the situation. China's rare earth export ban on Japan coincided with President Lee Jae-myung's visit to China. South Korea, observing China, expressed hope for a smooth resolution of the Japan-China conflict and noted its limited role, stepping back from involvement. The main concern is that a Japan-China conflict could impact South Korea due to the highly complex supply chains linking South Korea and China in advanced industries. Japan imports rare earths from China to make key parts for semiconductors, smartphones, and motors. Japan exports these parts to South Korea, which uses them to make final products for export. If Japanese material, parts, and equipment companies can't get rare earths on time, costs will rise and they can't properly produce components. South Korea will also face higher costs and disruptions in product manufacturing. At this stage, the key player is the United States. If we see the current situation as just a bilateral conflict between China and Japan, we'll miss the bigger picture. Japan is not alone. Behind Japan, the United States is already standing. When China used the rare earth card, the conflict immediately spread across East Asia, becoming central to United States, China's strategic competition. The United States has already defined China's monopoly on rare earths as the most dangerous strategic risk for several years now. The reason is simple. Rare earths are essential for both civilian and military industries. F-35 jets, missiles, guidance systems, radars, and electric warships all depend on them. From the American perspective, the very fact that China controls these resources was a security threat. That's why the United States acted much earlier than Japan. The United States is partnering with Australia and investing in rare earth mines there, as Australia has large reserves after China. American capital and technology are also invested in Canada. The United States is using subsidies and working with Vietnam to build a North American mining and refining supply chain. Is Vietnam another strategic option? Vietnam, just south of China, has major rare earth reserves. The United States is boosting ties with Vietnam to develop it as a production alternative to China. Including some African countries, the United States-led rare earth belt to reduce reliance on China is taking shape. Japan plays a major role in this trend, serving as both a key partner for the United States and not just a victim in its rare earth strategy. Japanese companies possess world-class refining technology and material processing capabilities, and the United States is actively utilizing Japan's technological prowess in the restructuring, even just through supply. United States, Japan joint stockpiling, mining investments, and technology development are already in progress. Japan isn't facing China alone, it's collaborating with the United States to buy time. While it may seem China's recent move targets Japan, it's actually more indirect pressure on the United States. China has issued an early warning about the United States' plan to reshape East Asia's supply chain via Japan. For China, Japan is both a test and a signal. If Japan hesitates, the United States will face pressure. If the United States retreats, China's resource dominance lasts longer. This rare earth export restriction is part of a short-term strategy, not just retaliation. By targeting Japan, China is also sending a signal to the United States. They are showing through a real example how far they can go if they use rare earths as a weapon. And this signal is not only directed at Japan, but also at South Korea, Taiwan, and even Europe at the same time. The moment China played this card, this fight was no longer just a trade dispute. It's a competition for hegemony over resources, and it's already become a new form of warfare. How will this war eventually end? Please feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments. That concludes this video. Thank you.